in particular, Kesra and Parajat have been doing. And let me just bring up the this.
Yep.
Great, thank you. So the agenda for today, and Kesra has to leave at 8 o'clock, well, 11 o'clock Eastern time. But so our agenda for today, we're going to give a quick update in terms of what we're targeting. Our technical report is set for publication March 2021, which is like what? That starts Monday, right, Cello?
That's March 31st. Yeah, is the
okay, good.
your slide we can see on the left side of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just
all right.
One notch down. There you go. Oops.
Is that better? A little more?
Yeah, a little bit more.
How's that?
Okay, so agenda is about 2/3. The word agenda is about. Yeah, if you could zoom out a little bit more, that'd be great.
Scoot it over if you could.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
You have to move it to the right as opposed to.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm in slide mode, so I'm sorry. I can't do that. Sorry.
Okay. Do you want me to share?
Yeah, maybe better. I don't know why. I haven't had any problems with this before. It's weird.
Okay.
Thanks, Jill. I'll stop sharing here. God dang it.
It's okay.
Thanks for your patience.
No problem.
Hey, Zonetta.
Is that okay?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Okay. Well, dang it. All right. Thanks, Jill.
No problem. So
we're walking through the agenda. So today we're going to do some background and update on people topics, the workforce and org culture maturity models evolution. There's a group of us been working on a particular Kesra and Parajat have been doing some great work, as well as some folks from the workforce team. Kesra's and Parajat are going to walk us through that. We're going to ask if there's questions of understanding on the model so far. And then we're going to talk about what do you like about the model and what shortcomings do you see that the team could address. And then we'll talk a little bit about wrapping it up here between now and the end of May for the WRF project. And if anyone has questions later, we can certainly address them. But the UAIM or WISE will be continuing on with WEF. But right now we're focused on the near term here, trying to get our deliverables done. So at this point, Kesra, could I? Let's see, Shell, would you advance it, please? Okay, so I can walk through this, but you might recall that our initial ideas to build the maturity model for the workforce were based on Daniel Pink's model. A workforce maturity model is mastery, autonomy, purpose, fairness, and inclusion was an additional part that we added to that because I don't believe that was part of Pink's original model. And then we used as our base of Patrick Lencioni's model. It came from his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Trust and collaboration are the foundation, and then these build on each other: values and purpose, control, authority, accountability, and then results oriented. Next slide, please. So we collected 400 statements, which was fantastic. And since we had that workshop, I think that was back in January, wasn't it?
yes.
Yeah, back in January. So folks have been hard at work trying to distill that into some things that we can use for the maturity model, as well as doing creating an assessment tool, borrowing heavily from the is it Office of Personnel Management, Parajat?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Office of Personnel, the OPM survey. So we're trying to use some existing models, existing frameworks that we can build on to piggyback on those things. Next, please. So as I mentioned, distilling all these down and creating an assessment model. We've collapsed into about 20 categories, and the categories have been placed into 8 sections. And we've got some level 5 maturity statements for each category, as well as some level 3 and some level 1, I believe, for a number of them. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the 45 categories, at least a portion of the 45 categories.
Yeah,
Next
so
slide.
we took the 400 statements and we kind of when we started looking at the 400 statements, there were a lot of overlaps. There were a lot of things consistent, themes that we saw. And so we decided to break them down into sort of categories. So workforce did theirs, and then org culture did theirs, and then we combined them into this list so that we could look at what overlaps we have. So we ended up with like 45 categories. So we could make one. We wanted to make sure we address every comment, every statement, but it was harder to do it when you look at 400, and so it was easier to collapse them into these categories so we can review them closely and develop those level 5 maturity statements and assessment questions.
Yeah, Kesra, can I turn it over to you at this point to continue walking us through this, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So what we've done, we've actually developed a framework. We're focusing now on the content, but the framework basically says, okay, we had these 45 categories, and we saw overlaps again within those 45 categories between organizational culture and workforce. So what we did was we said, okay, well, let's break these down further. And we came up with about 20 categories if we combine them together. And then we said we can section them into, what relates to employee engagement, what relates to performance management, what relates to organizational values. And so we combined those statements into these categories or these sections so that we can look at them instead of looking at a laundry list going up and down. We've put them into separate sections. And so if we're looking at employee engagement, for example, all employee engagement, workforce related statements and maturity level 5 statements and the organizational culture relating to those, we can then review them on one sort of page and say, where are overlaps? What kind of assessment questions do we need? Do we combine the workforce and our culture together? Do we keep them separate? It gives us a better visual and also a better handle on how to manage them. So what we've done is for each tab, we look at the level 5 maturity statement, we look at the layer that it was discussed in. We then start looking at the assessment questions. We're identifying the sources, and as Mark mentioned, we're using a lot of the questions from OPM, and Persian has come up with some other sources as well that we can use. And then we're sort of defining whether these are workforce related, org related, and there's so much overlap, sometimes it's hard to say where they belong. But at least that'll give us an idea of whether we collapse this into one statement or we leave them as two separate. And so it's a framework for us to now focus in on those particular headlines, as you call it, and say what questions do we, pertain to these particular statements and or maturity level 5 statements that we've developed. Any questions on that?
So Kesra, do we want to show the details at this point, or are we good? Are we good? Or are we good at this level?
I think I can show the detail. It is a little bit. Give me just a second. It's opening the file, just to kind of show the sort of what we call the sausage making part of it. This is the Office of Personnel Management survey, and it shows the highlighted questions. This is from federal government, have been included somewhere in our assessment. So you can see we have a couple of other sources that Barry just brought in. I know this is difficult to read. Let me just see if I can zoom in. But this is, you can see that these are the different categories, and then these tabs are color coded where we were looking at different questions and then the proposed categories and sections. So it's very much a work in progress. So you can see like this green thing is compensation. Give me just a second. Sorry.
Shelley, maybe the Word document that we had developed, the framework might give a better idea, but I mean, we can walk through the spreadsheet.
Yeah, this one was at my fingertips and I was concerned about time and the fact that you have to, so I rushed to the first thing that I could find.
No worries.
So I can post the document, but for example, if you see that compensation is in green here, and then if you go to the green, green tab, then you will see how the questions are being developed, and you see that this one is a different source than the previous. It's not Office of Personnel Management. So a lot of this is being worked on, consolidated, and we have a call later today between Parijat Kesra and me to further discuss this, and then tomorrow there's a core team meeting with a number of other people to see how we're going to divide and conquer this. These are different tabs, and this is all Kesra's work and Parijat's work, not mine. So I have to say, so you can see that this is kind of how things are being worked on, and then in these cases we will want to add some questions and stuff like that. So
Cello, if I might, I think what this shows you is there's some real robustness, there's some real richness behind all of this. There's some great information, and we're going to continue to fill it out. And then our challenge is going to be kind of distill it down to make it simpler, so that we can then go out, we can do the assessment, you can use these survey tools, and then there'd be options, because there's going to be this real richness of information and depth to this whole thing too. So most people probably will never see this level of detail, right? Yeah. Please, Kesra.
Yeah, so I do want to emphasize this is just the framework for us to manage, right? This is not what's going to go out to people. This is not something that, because it looks complicated, and like I love the sausage making description that Cello uses, but this really is for us to manage those 400 statements. We don't want to lose the essence of anything that we've collected. And so this is a framework, this is a working document where we can say, all right, so these are all about, organizational values. These are all the statements that we've received. These are some of the questions. We want to make sure we don't duplicate or triplicate questions, or maybe we want to triplicate questions. At least we're making those decisions, informed decisions based on the criteria that we're establishing here. So once we have these questions and these maturity statements developed on these levels, we can then take all of this and put it into a, combine them all together into a usable format, and then, obviously develop the assessment model.
Scott, you have your hand up?
Yeah, maybe Kesra could also, the evolution of all these going from those statements was also to identify what would level 5 look like. Yeah. And maybe you just mentioned that about how the questions relate to that, and also address things from maybe an employee level, supervisor leader standpoint, and executives.
Yeah, so I think the idea, and Cello, we can't see that whole screen. If you could maybe move the left-hand column, really are the maturity level 5 statements. What would an organization look like? The other way, Cello, sorry. What would the level 5 maturity organization for those look like? And based on those level 5 statements, and again, those still need to be refined and reviewed. That's just that first kind of thought process that was thrown in there. We're going to review each maturity statement and say, okay, here are the questions. Then we're going to look at some of the other questions and say, do we need to now refine the maturity level 5 statements as well? So, you know, there's that question, does the maturity level drive the questions? In some cases, some of the questions you want asked might drive the level 5 maturity statement. So this just helps us to segment on each tab, segment it by category, by a section and by categories, so that we can really closely look at those level 5 maturity statements and really look at the questions we're asking. The questions have to be things related to leadership, right? How well is the leadership doing versus how well is the workforce doing? And so those questions have to be, we want to make sure that those questions, we address both of those. And we address organizational culture and workforce development. So this just helps us focus in and horn in. You know, the whole framework purpose was, how do we focus in and make sure we're addressing everything that we talked about in those workshops where we came up with 400 plus statements.
Yes, and in some cases, we can structure the questions on the right. May not necessarily always be sourced to a different, you know, office of personnel or FAO, whatever. We could potentially just have a statement from the level 5 maturity example that says leadership walks the talk, especially regarding fairness and inclusion, and put it on a scale from 1 to 5 to say strongly agree and strongly disagree. Mm-hmm. So we don't need to, so we can optimize the number of questions that we ask, so that at the end of the day we get the information that we'd like. So in some cases, even if there's not a question currently listed, we could, you know, pose these maturity 5 level statements and have them, you know, have them rated that way.
And the other reason the spreadsheet does look complicated, because there's so many tabs, is because we wanted to keep that audit trail, right? We wanted to make sure nobody says, well, we discussed this, what happened to it? So we've got the 400 statements, there's a tab way to the right, we've got all the statements recorded in there. And then as we mature to this level, we keep moving forward. So we're keeping that audit trail as well. So that's, again, that's the reason why it looks like it's the sausage mill.
Yeah, and we also have a start on the demographic questions. So all of this can be, I think, once this is synthesized and streamlined, then we'll go through a round of review by participating utilities and agree on something, and that will be really the for March and April. For March to have the first draft, and then we have till April and May to finalize it all. Sorry for rushing, Kaiser. It's really because I'm trying to.
No, I understand. I don't know if anyone has any more questions for me, or even comments. You know, I mean, if you guys think this looks good, let us know. If you think we need to, you know, refine this more, let me know.
I think this looks amazing. I have one question. I'm brand new to here, so this has probably been addressed already. But in regards to the previous screen, Cello, that you had up with the questions, what are the responses that you're looking for? How are those measured? Are they, you know, numbered like 1 to 5 is this or that? Like, how would a respondent know how to respond to those questions?
Yes, that's a very good point. We are going to look at whether to use this Likert scale, you know, strongly disagree to strongly agree, when it's reasonable. And so once we have the questions, we'll say, okay, how do we best ask this question? So we haven't gotten to that yet. But for example, if we have, you know, like this green, my supervisor treats me with respect, I think it's probably good to go from strongly disagree to strongly agree, because it gives us, you know, sort of a temperature sense. Something like leaders and managers communicate consistently, maybe we can break into 5, like don't communicate ever and communicate all the time. It's clear and unclear and stuff like that. So the structure, some of the things that you see OPM here, they are mostly on the strongly disagree to strongly agree. Is that correct, Parijat?
Yep.
Yeah. So whenever we see, when the sources, let's say, something like office personnel management, where they've had hundreds of thousands of people fill it out and there's data, we will maintain we'll keep the measurement, if you will, according to the source. But if it's a question that we one of the questions here, like leaders of the organization walk the talk, this is something that it was literally one of the comments that one of the participants made. So we can't find something exactly like that, but and there were more than one, among those 400 that kind of implied this. So we couldn't find exactly that in a survey, that source. So we're trying to walk the balance between having some sort of standard questions and keeping consideration of everything that people have posted and said, Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely.
Kesra, I know we're getting close to time. Is there anything else? Some final thoughts before you have to sign off?
No, I was just typing in the chat window to say I'm leaving. So no, if you have any questions, anything that you think we should do differently, please reach out to Cello or Mark or myself, and we'll work on it. And if anyone can volunteer to help us further refine this with the questions, please raise your hands and we'll engage you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kesra.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Kesra.
All right. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you. So let me go back to the where's PowerPoint. So this is where we are right now. Sort of how we're in this, finalizing the level 5 maturity statement, defining the assessment questions, and then we'll later finalize them and prepare the proposed assessment plan and method. And just quickly, this is the model for WISE that we've discussed a number of times. And what we're talking about now is defining the structure for these assessment capabilities from 1 to 5 for organizational culture and workforce. And the next step is going to be to integrate the feedback that we get from these assessments into our methods for improvement and change management. So that's sort of the big picture of what we're doing. And I will post this presentation, I think, Mark, you sent out. Is that correct?
No, I didn't get a chance to send it out, but I will.
Okay. Yeah, so we will either send out and post. This is a schedule for the workshops and things we're planning and for February and March for the people topics, workforce and organizational culture. This is scheduled for April and May, includes workshops to discuss the work plans and improvement initiatives for next year. We have some initiatives that have been proposed, such as energy management, data analytics, and one more that right now I can't, from City of Baltimore, that I can't pull up from my brain. So we will discuss those types of things, and the things that to kind of let you know about is we have March 8th and 10th workshops on maturity models and assessment methods planned. That will pick up from all the work that we can do between now and then, and give everybody a chance to talk, and it'll be like 90-minute sessions. So I'll stop sharing and go back to Mark and everybody.
Great, thanks, Chell. So it was a quick walkthrough, but we do have a small group. Are there things that you have questions on, understanding about in terms of our approach? Is there something that we're missing, which you think we could address at this point, which you'd want us to include as we continue to create the assessment and finalize the models?
We may have to start calling on people.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
maybe, Mark, your questions are real good ones, and you could basically, it's almost like on a 1 through 5 scale, fist to 5 or whatever you want to do. Is this making sense to you, or not? And then you were asking for suggestions on what's missing or how you can make it better, right?
Right.
And Jessica has her hand up here too.
So totally new here, but given that there's some room for questions, Mark, who knows me, won't be surprised to hear I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about the ultimate delivery to the workforce, right? And I'm assuming that you're planning on a written survey on screen, because that's really the only way to do it in a consistent way with a large group of people. This is a little out there, but I find myself curious about whether there's also kind of when we're able to be in the same room together, more of an interactive, workshop-y, dialogue-y sort of supplement version that could go deeper with some folks, especially people who aren't really screen people. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just wondering if that's on the table. Does that question make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Like a focus group, right?
Yeah, it certainly
Exactly.
makes the, yeah, it's some, I couldn't probably find the slide quickly enough to pull it up, but we're working through the steps of an improvement methodology that we have defined. So the first step is to define the range of possible capabilities, a range of maturity, what would describe a horrible place to work, and what would this, and then the next step, so that we have some sort of range and way to, like a framework. We've done this for business processes in the previous years, and now we're doing it for the people side. Now, the next step is assessment of where am I on this range, and then after that is the step that says, where would I like to be? So those are the 3 steps that we're looking at right now. After that is when the real, stuff begins, which is, okay, this is where I am, this is where I'd like to be, how do I actually get there? Which is then and that is really the change management steps, to plan the improvement, to execute, to monitor performance and stuff like that. So they currently in the water sector, we don't have a maturity so we're starting there, and the effort will continue. Now, so that will actually be what you're describing would be after you get the survey, what do you do? And that's about change management. So we have a change management team already there. So we're looking to first do these so we can get assessment where we are, and then the change management comes in the next 3 steps. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I was wondering whether there are organizations where sometimes the assessment phase would involve more dialogue. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'm picturing Post-it notes. I'm picturing people slapping Post-it notes or dropping beans in jars or something.
Well, I think that would work well in some organizations. I was a few months ago, I was in a meeting when we were debating whether to put out a survey between employees. And one of the people said, well, we can't have it anonymous, because if we have it anonymous, people will just say whatever they think, whatever they want. So
They'd come up with the wrong answer, Cello.
Yeah, we can't have people actually tell us what they think. So this was a manager saying this. So, in some types of organizations, it may be a little bit difficult for people to feel comfortable without the cover, without some, and so it may not be unreasonable to start with an assessment that is sort of, keeps people anonymous and stuff like that. I'm also a little bit nervous about the demographic part, so it doesn't really provide a map to point to who it is. And then once we get feedback like that, we'll say, we got really a problem in such and such team, and we don't have a problem in this team, and then so that we have some if the initial assessment is that this is actually not too bad, then the approach they're suggesting would probably be fine. But if people say, I'm, frozen with fear in every meeting, and I see that Scott has his hand up.
Well, I was just going to say, maybe Jessica, you were thinking that as part of this, you would have within a utility, you would have a front end process where you convene some steering group or some team that is going to have some oversight over this process. If you're doing it organization wide, if it's a smaller team, you may not need it, but the survey we're putting out there, but it could be tailored also. I mean, you can pick and choose off of the survey. There may be a question or two or three or whatever that you might want to add based on your organization. So the front end process to get buy-in to the process for those participating is often, what utilities would do.
Kind of like our design team approach, I think, that, that we've used for some stuff internally, Jessica. Yeah.
Okay, so any other comments? Zonetta, you're waiting still to give us a comment, or you have something?
I don't have anything to add. I think it's done some excellent work. Very, it's tedious, and I think you've done a really excellent job. No, I mean, how I am.
It is.
And I think you've done a really good job. I like the audit trail portion of it, which I put in the comments. And I just think, it's a huge task. And so, being in virtual makes it more difficult. And I think we've done the best we can. So kudos to those who've done it.
Yeah, well, it is in every sense of the word sausage making.
And it's version 1 too, Zanetta.
Yeah.
So
it is 1.
So, it could be further refined, but we've got to get a deliverable that people feel good about as a starting place anyway.
Yeah, the hardest part's, for me at least, the hardest part's always creating the first draft. Improving always seems to be easier than creating the first go through. So
I have a question with the how, and I feel like I'm jumping way ahead because this is after everything has been captured, gathered, analyzed. How are we thinking of ways to provide that support that teams would need, that training that they would need? Are we going to have external trainers come in, or, how does that work? What type of resources will be available to assist them with improving?
Yeah, Parijat, you were shaking your head. You have a thought?
Yes. So, I mean, time permitting and resources, we could work on coming up with tools for action planning, communication, and, how you could identify what is the area of improvement for the organization or your unit, and then, certain suggestions that if this is the area, what is it that you could do? But it would require further amount of investment.
Yeah, one observation is that some of the participants here, I mean, like Parjat is available for Kansas City. In DC Water, Makeda, they have a function that this falls under, that where they're trying to develop in-house expertise on this and other related things, which we fully support. For those that don't have either the skills or the time then, like Zanetta has done, reach out to a consultant, to help you. You can rely on the project team. I guess we could talk about in future phases. You can rely on other peers that are, going through this process for review. And I don't know, Cello, there's a question of just how much project support might be available also, to assist utilities when we get into the later phase under WISE with WEF.
Yeah, what we envisioned this is, and from the very beginning, this was kind of like a different concept. It's like totally different from the other Water Research Foundation projects. And so we never wanted, it was never our goal to develop like a consulting practice around this. It was really to establish connection between different people in utilities, create a network where they could help each other. And then whenever they feel that they don't have, in a smaller utility perhaps, or depending on, may not have easy access internally to staff that can help. But then, we would also, through this effort, people could share artifacts, like they shared, okay, this is our strategic asset management plan, so you could look at it. But then every improvement initiative will have to be kind of tailored to the nature of the utility, to what are their priorities, what do they want to attack first. We also are thinking that it probably, we have actually specific ideas about how to start on a small scale. Not try to change the whole organization, but start, in smaller chunks that could be organized around around the business process. Like you'd say, we've got really problem in procurement because people don't work, and then just focus on that and kind of learn, learn and then apply it across the organization. So there would need to be flexibility that reflects, some places are heavily unionized, some places don't have unions at all. So there may be a requirement, a different approach may be needed. I see Zonetta raising her hand.
Yeah, I just want to add, I like her question, and I being involved with this for a long period of time, we have seen this happen organically with the other topics that we have. I think this is the first topic that we've had where we don't, I think a lot of them in the same boat. We're in the development, not to regurgitate what Dr. but what we have picked up is from other experts. Like our organization is now going through the change management. We've actually picked a model. So I envision that once we get done with our initial, then we would offer to offer some assistance. So I think the whole intent initially was to share, and then when we were meeting in person, we had different presentations, and so when we move, and I think based on what I've done with WEF before, there's even opportunities for people to offer workshops or seminars and things of that nature, and really just I think the best thing is that we have been able to pull from other utilities, and we get asked even things outside of things we're working on now, where the camaraderie and the expertise that I've been able to go or help another utility, we've done that. So I think it's an excellent question, and we'll need to map out the process to be able to facilitate that. But I do believe with the amount of utilities that we have and the experts that we have, that we'll be able to facilitate doing that. I just think this particular topic has been a little bit challenging. We all wish we were ahead. So it's not like how it is with CIP delivery and things that we're other, asset management, there's history there. So I don't know if that helps, but I love the question, and I think it ought to be you know, the ways to do that. But I'm confident that we have the resources within the utilities to facilitate. Hope I didn't over talk, which I always do. See, I need to be quiet.
Yeah, and it'll be better, you know, once this remote stuff, we've been at it for a long time, but once we can get together for a couple of days, or maybe pick a place, you know, like we spent a week in Oregon, and that was really very useful and in many ways. It will naturally grow, you know, as we go along.
Just to add to your comment, which I agree with, is that we have a fairly big critical mass of utilities. And what we've discovered is that leading practice, so to speak, kind of exists somewhere among our peers. And so what we've been doing is capturing, you know, those bits of expertise that exist. And it's been kind of a cool revelation, you know, compared to a different model, which says, oh, we need to learn something, so go out to a consultant and, you know, we'll get the expertise there. It's more among ourselves as utilities, you know, we're able to, you know, basically find some leading practice in the area that we're interested in, and it really benefits us. So that's just to emphasize what Zanetta was saying.
So, Mark, I think this is pretty much what we wanted to cover.
We wanted to cover today. Great discussion. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and we are expecting that soon we'll have some news from WEF on the report being published and stuff like that. The report that would kind of map out the work under WEF, and we're gonna have meetings to decide what we want to work next and stuff like that. And hopefully WebTech will be in person. So
middle of October, I got my hopes that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine hopefully going to be approved tomorrow, single dose.
Oh, tomorrow oh yeah, you mean the Johnson vaccine? Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it Johnson & Johnson company made that vaccine? It's a single dose. It's not
quite
as good, but it's really preventing severe illness, which is really the absolute
81%.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I'm in the I'm in the you know, old person group, so I was able to get the vaccine already, you know. But
yeah, I'm old, but not old enough.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, you're not old enough, and you know, I'm too old, so.
Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Good discussion this morning, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. And remember, it's going to be a workshop. We're going to extend it if you can.